I'm attempting to complete every single GameCube game, and I'm using a random number generator to pick the next game. Last episode, we saved the children and Lemony Snicket's a series of unfortunate events. And in this episode, we're heading back to Middle-earth and learning about everyone's favorite Hobbit, Bilbo Baggins, in the game The Hobbit. The Hobbit was released on November 11, 2003, and was developed by Inevitable Entertainment and published by Sierra Entertainment. This game was surprisingly fun and a pretty fleshed out platformer in the Middle-earth universe. I actually enjoyed my time with it. Before we get started, make sure to like this video because it helps out the channel, and subscribe if you're new so you don't miss any of the future games. Without further ado, this is my experience with The Hobbit. In The Hobbit, we're going to go through the story mode to consider this one complete. When we start the game, we get greeted with a hand-drawn book cutscene telling us about the story of Bilbo Baggins. At this point, it basically lets us know that Bilbo was a respectful hobbit and never experienced any real adventures in his life. If you've been keeping up with the GameCube Challenge series, you know that in the last episode, we had the same type of cutscenes in Lemony Snicket's. I don't know if this was a common among games that were based on books, or if it was just easier at that point in time. Anyways, this transitions into an actual cutscene where Gandalf and a band of dwarves are in Bilbo's house. Just randomly. People have zero boundaries in this game, apparently. The cutscene explains that we have to get to the Lonely Mountain because the dwarves are determined to win their ancient kingdom back from the big scary dragon, Smaug. Bilbo then faints, and we get to actually play the game. The first mission is called Dream World, and is basically the tutorial for this game. It shows you what you can do. If you don't know, this game is an action-adventure platformer game. As Bilbo, we can move around and jump, and we have the ability to attack by using a sword or a stick, and we also have the ability to throw rocks at our enemies. This is the basics of the game. We eventually get some other abilities later in the game, but for right now, this is what we know how to do. This part has you run around what appears to be a big war between the dwarfs and the goblins. When we get through the tutorial, Bilbo wakes up and decides that he wants to go on this big adventure with Gandalf. I think I should include this here. I don't know The Hobbit all that well, so I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of lore that I miss along the way when I'm playing this game, or just misunderstanding of something as we go through it. So this might not be as good as someone that really dives into the Middle-earth lore. So if I get something wrong, I apologize. Once we're able to play as Bilbo again, we open a chest in our house that has a stick inside. This stick will allow for us to attack enemies as well as like a lunge jump, using it so we can cover more ground. We'll be using this for a while, so I think it's something I should point out. We leave our house and we're in the Hobbit village, which is all nice and fun. This place has some good vibes. There are other hobbits around town and we can talk to each one of them. Some of them will give us requests to complete, and as I was playing through this game, I was trying to complete as many of those as I could. But I didn't really include any of them in the video because most of them are just collecting an item or doing something random. In The Hobbit, we can collect crystals around the world, and completing those requests will give us more crystals. As we collect them, the bar at the top of the screen will begin to fill up. Once we collect enough, it will completely fill up and we will get another bubble of health. Think of this as the heart system in The Legend of Zelda. Since we're so little, we take fall damage and enemies can cause us a lot of damage quickly. When we throw rocks, we can change to almost a first-person view and aim to throw them more accurately. I didn't really use this all that much during my playthrough of this game, but I wanted to point out that you can eventually pick up special rocks that have ice damage, fire damage, and ones that will explode. It's a cool little thing they added into the game. We meet some children that want to play hide and seek with them. This child in the front looks like a 30-year-old man in disguise. Is that you, Count Olaf? One of the side missions has us sneak around this hedge maze, and we can't let the guy catch us or we have to start over. This was actually pretty difficult before I realized how to do it. This is one of those random little requests in the game that don't give you anything besides crystals. The main request we need to do is collect some supplies for the dwarves for our journey, and one of those items they need are eggs. We have to risk our lives going into the chicken coop and getting some eggs from the meanest chickens in the whole world. I've been around chickens in my life, and I've never seen them freak out this bad about someone just walking inside of the barn. Just saying. Anyways, to get the eggs, we just have to avoid walking on the lighter brown floor panels. Nothing super crazy. Around the world, there are treasure chests that are locked, and you can either use a key on them if you have one, or you have to complete the task inside to unlock it. But sometimes they will hurt you with poison or by exploding if you don't complete those tasks. The tasks aren't that hard, but they're all based on timing. Some of them have you just hit A when the green one shows up, like in this example here, or time the spinning wheel to match the green area. If you pay attention, they're not really an issue. After collecting some items for the dwarves, we're allowed to enter the inn, and we can head out on our adventure for real. This was a decent opening to the game. On to the next mission. At the end of each mission, it will tell you how many crystals you collected and how many silver pennies that you collected total out of what's available in that level. This will also tell you if you completed all the quests in the mission and if you got all the treasure chests. Using the silver pennies, you can buy items for your journey, such as potion, treasure chest keys, and some upgrades for Bilbo. This gives you a reason to actually look around the level for these items. We get another book cutscene showing us traveling to the Great Lone Lands, but they were low on food and were all wet and cold. We're sent to investigate the area, and it opens up with us hanging out in the rain. We get to fight our first enemy that wasn't in a dream here. It's this scary plant thing that tries to bite us, but the real enemies is this wolf pack that attacks us. They're easy to kill, but they will swarm you. We eventually get to this dam, and we have to drain the water from the top to the bottom to raise up some platforms for us to cross. You cannot swim in this game, so if you go in the water, you'll drown. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but we end up in the water going in a circle. Like someone pulled the plug from a sink. We just have to make it to the rope in the middle and climb up. After getting further into the level, we run into an ogre camp, and the ogres are not the brightest crayons in the box. Our inner thief comes out, and we decide that we're going to steal the ogre's wallet. Because of course we are. We have no self-control. Come on, Bilbo. I do really like this part though, because we have to sneak around in time when we run through different areas. I did get captured a good amount of times when playing this section, but I really like this part. If you know anything about me, I'm not good at stealth games. We finally get down to the wallet and we pick it up. The wallet ends up being alive and it starts talking. The ogre notices and then he grabs us, and I think he wants to eat us or something, which, how small we are, would it even be worth eating a hobbit? I feel like it would just be easier to kill him and call it a day. We're in quite a situation now. But Gandalf comes and saves us by imitating the different ogres' voices and causing them to fight all night long. And once the sun comes out, they turn to stone. Is this a thing in Middle-earth world? Do ogres turn to stone from the sunlight? Are they some sort of vampire creatures or something? Gandalf then convinces us to go inside a cave that the trolls live in, I guess. I don't know why we would need to do this, but okay. We find out that there is a key that we need when we get inside the cave to get to the trolls' treasure. Or treasure that they're supposed to have anyways. There isn't much that happens inside the cave for a while, but I wanted to show how it's bioluminescence and looks really good considering the time period. This is one of my favorite levels in the game. We run into our first boss fight, which is a giant armored armadillo. This fight is really easy. You kill the little ones around him, and then he'll stand up on his back legs, and you hit him in the stomach. Do this 3 times, and you beat him. A good introduction boss, and it wasn't that challenging. You have to prevent yourself from getting hit, though, because it does a ton of damage to us. Also, I don't know how hitting this thing in the stomach does damage, because it has armor on it. We're using a wooden stick. Logic, I guess. But after we defeat it, we get a bunch of crystals. Somewhere down in the cave, we meet an elf girl that we decide to help and bring her this potion because she's poisoned or something. After collecting the troll key and making it towards the end of the cave, we stumble across a door that has the troll's treasure behind it. We unlock it and we get the sword we were using in Bilbo's dream. Was his dream real life? This sword is much stronger than the stick and can be used as a light in dark areas, so it has kind of a double purpose. The next mission is called Overhill and Underhill, and we're in the cliffs of the mountains. We're cold and wet and we need to collect firewood. We find some, but then the rock gives out and we're separated from the party. This slide would be the most terrifying thing ever. If you come off too fast, you slide off the edge and you die. It's that simple. Sometime later, we get a little cutscene where Gandalf is like, "What happened to Bilbo? He's been gone a long time getting firewood." We go into the mountain in like an underground world, and each area we have to collect objects to open the door or drop a bridge. This part isn't very difficult, it just takes a while to collect everything a bunch of times. The first one is gold pieces and it opens a hidden door. The next set of parts are copper, and this one eventually drops down a bridge, and the last one is metallic, and this one also drops down another bridge with one of the most dramatic cutscenes for no reason. We acquire another troll key after beating a bunch of these small enemies, and it opens up a path for us to get back outside of the mountain and return to the dwarf camp that we fell from. Gandalf greets us and says, "Hey, I'm up here." Then we go to explain what happened, and he basically tells us to shut up. We move into this room, and it's a trap. There are goblins waiting for us, and they tell us they're going to take us down, and with the help of Gandalf, this fight is a breeze. We get a bunch of crystals in this fight because the goblins drop just an absolute ton of them for some reason. I don't know if I mentioned this, but the mushrooms around each level would give you health back. We then get a cutscene where some goblins sneak into the cave we're sleeping in and kidnap all the dwarves. During the confusion, Bilbo cracks his head and then falls into the shadows. The next level is called Riddles in the Dark. This takes place in a scary dark cave filled with spiders. This is nightmare fuel, if I've ever seen it. The spiders in this game are one hit to kill besides the bigger ones, but the issue comes with the fact that they can cause poison to you and your health will slowly drain away for an extended amount of time. We find Balfour, the leader of the dwarves, locked in a prison cell, and we're going to have to figure out how to rescue him and get him out. This involves us traveling through this old mining system and activating a bunch of lifts to get further into the cave. This part isn't that big, but since it's designed in a vertical way, it takes a fair bit of time to get where you need to go. We get this chest and get poisoned by it. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of this video. We meet a goblin by the name of Ugslap, and he tells us that he will open up this big gate door thing if we get the item he wants. This sounds like a trap, but we decide we're going to help him anyways. We find the key to our first lift, which makes moving upwards much easier. We get on this lift system that will take us across the area, but it runs pretty slow, so I just wanted to point out how annoying it is to just sit there and wait. So don't fall off of it. After finding the ward stone that Ugslap wanted, we return it back to him. And he does open the gate, but decides that he's going to try to kill us anyways. So we have to fight him to the death. Actually, it's a pretty standard fight. He just really likes doing flips and parkour, so it's sometimes just hard to hit him, but he's pretty easy overall. Once we're done dealing with Ugslap, we head down into the area where Balfour is being held in a prison cell. We have to sneak around during this section because we say the guards are too big and powerful for us to handle. Nothing really happens during this part besides us letting him out and we kill a bunch of goblins. The next part has us riding a mining cart like in Donkey Kong Country. We have to hit the switches to get to the right area of the cave. I felt like the timing during this was actually a bit off, and I struggled a few times before I was able to go in the right direction. The next major event is when we come across a random ring on the ground, and our good friend Gollum is lurking in the distance. Gollum says we have it, and we play a game saying that if he can correctly name what we have in our pocket, we'll give it to him. This is a classic trick because we don't have anything in our pocket, and he guesses wrong, so he has to lead us out of the cave. Once we escape from the cave, Bilbo and his large group of dwarfs are being chased in the woods by goblins. We're in big trouble and ended up climbing a tree. Not sure why that's people's solution when running from someone that's trying to harm them, but once we get up there, the great eagles come to the rescue and fly us away from danger. We got extremely lucky. That's the end of that mission, and we move on to the next mission, which is called Flies and Spiders. This might be one of the best missions in the game, because it's just silly and there's a lot of stuff going on. We find out that the dwarfs are taken away because we stray off the path, even though we're told to stay on the path no matter what happens. So Bilbo, being the hero that he is, heads into the forest to save their behinds, yet again. This area is a giant forest with spiders everywhere and dangers around every corner. We come across a very large spider that takes a couple hits to take down. We meet a human by the name of Corwin that tells us that his brother was taken in the forest. Corwin knows he's dead, but he wants us to grab his things if we come across it. The next part has us move this rock to plug the water to raise the water level. But again, we can't swim, so we have to get the timing right for this section. We run into another boss fight. It's with an undead creature night guy. He's called the Wit Lord, I guess. Like I said, I don't really know the lore of the Hobbit that well. So you can tell me in the comments what this guy is. This boss fight is pretty easy. You just have to jump around and stay away from him while he does his specific attacks. It's not a bad fight, and we get a bunch of crystals after we beat him. We finally find the dwarves, and they're all strung up in like web sacks or something. And we have to cut them down each individually. Once we save them all, the leaders of the spiders challenge us to a duel. They're not that hard to fight. If you just hop up on one little ledge up, they won't climb up it. I don't know if that's like a technical problem or if I just got lucky, but they won't come up there. They'll just walk towards you, and then you can just throw some explosive rocks at them. The first 3 of them are super simple, and I was like, that boss was nothing. Then the big mama spider, to end all spider, comes down and tells us she won't let us leave. This fight is a bit more complicated because you have to hit her with a rock, and then you have to wait for her to go through this animation before you can hit her again and do damage. It's not that hard, but it takes a long time. We beat her with no real issues, and that's the end of the mission. I like all the cool stuff that happens in this mission. The next one is called Barrels Out of Bond. This mission starts with the dwarfs getting locked up again at the elf camp, because of course, they always do. The dwarfs in this game are so beyond useless. I don't remember them being this helpless in the movies. Anyways, we didn't get captured, and now we have to make our way into the elf camp and find the dwarves. Since we have the ring that makes us invisible now, getting into the camp is actually pretty simple. We just have to watch the meter because it only lasts us so long to stay invisible. We get into the camp by opening the massive front door and walking inside. That doesn't seem suspicious or anything. Once we're inside, the female elf that we saved in the cave agrees to help us set the dwarves free. Her name is like Leanne, I think. We come across this block moving puzzle to unlock a door. We just have to match the symbols on the crate to the symbols on the ground. This opens up a gate that allows us to move further into the camp. This time we talk to Balin and begin brainstorming ways to get out of the camp. I didn't include it, but we have to find these plants to put in the guard's drink. He's guarding barrels that we're going to put the dwarfs in and push them into the river. The mix of the plants makes the guard fall asleep, and we force the dwarfs into these barrels. We push all the barrels into the river and then jump on top of it. I think this would hurt really bad, and we'd probably fall off the barrel. The next cutscene we get shows us washing up at Lake Town, and we make it there successfully. Woo! Go Bilbo! Lake Town is the first place to accept us since the Hobbit hole. The people of Lake Town throw a feast for the dwarves and are super nice to us. This mission is called A Warm Welcome and has us running around the town and helping out when we can. We talk to Bard, and he tells us that wine is being stolen at night and they don't know who's doing it. So we have to follow this guy going through town without being caught by him to figure out where he's taking stuff and who might be involved. Once we find out the guy was going into this big warehouse, we return to Bard and tell him what we know. He tells us he'll ask and see what information he can get. In the meantime, we head back to the warehouse and go inside. This causes us to fall because the porch thing crashes down. Once we fall, we get attacked by a bunch of goblins. We take them down and we get back out of the warehouse. Bard is there and he apologizes to us because he didn't realize the warehouse was going to be that dangerous. We head into a different warehouse this time, and as we're exploring, we come across these pipes that spit green poison on us or something. I'm not sure what exactly was going on, but we had to turn them off. We're told that this old thief named Malik might know how to get into the lair of the thieves. So we ask him, and he says he can help us if we can get an item back from his house that the thieves in town took over. We do that. He tells us we have to collect wine bottles and arrange them in a specific way to open the door. The game gives you some hints, but this is the order if you were wondering. I wanted to show this part because we have to move these floating pieces of walkway around, and I thought this part was pretty cool because it's something new and not something that we had done yet in the game, so pretty interesting. Once we get all the way into the thief hideout, we find that the thieves and the goblins are getting ready to meet. We have to sneak around after this and get closer so we can hear what is going on. We hop around the area and end up at the top of the room. The thieves claim that the goblins betrayed them, and they have an all-out fight between the two groups. We escape the room because we're not siding with anyone in this situation, and we meet back up with Bard. He's able to get his dragon arrow back from the thieves, and he tells us we're welcome in town at any time, and he's in our debt. Then we move on to the next mission, which has us climbing up to the top of Lonely Mountain. Finally. This mission is called Inside Information, and Thorin wants us to go inside the lair of Smaug and bring him the golden cup of Thor. I think that's what it is, Thor. I would have told this dude to do it himself, but Bilbo takes this as a challenge and wants to show off his skills as a burglar. This part of the game is pretty cool though. We have to sneak around and get closer and closer to Smaug without waking him up. Walking in gold will make noise. Jumping around will also make noise. If you make too much noise, he wakes up and he burns us to a crisp. So if you are moving and the meter increases, you have to stop and wait for the meter to go back down. I don't normally like stealth sections of games, but this one was pretty good. There are treasure chests all over this area, and I was going around and unlocking them all. We finally climb above Smaug and dangle from a chain right above his head. We land next to Smaug and manage to not wake him up, even though I feel like that would be a lot of noise. We pick up the golden cup, and then we have the most awkward stare-off between Bilbo and the dragon. It lasts way too long, and he just looks at him, and he's like grinding his teeth. It's such a weird cutscene. After that cutscene, we get out of the lair, and Smaug wakes up and freaks out. He screams, "Thieves! Fire! Murder!" Not a complete sentence. Don't know what he was getting at, but that's what he yells. He's very upset. So guess what happens next? Oh, did you guess that we were going to go back into the lair because we're smart little Hobbit? When we return, he tells us that he knows we're there and he wants us to show our face. Bilbo climbs above him and then begins to mock Smaug in a way. I don't know where this courage came from, but he mocks him and then eventually figures out that Smaug has a weakness on his chest. We have to escape again by hiding behind stuff when he blows fire. We escape and return to the dwarves to tell them about the hollow spot on Smaug's chest. Smaug comes flying out of his lair and destroys the side of the mountain. We're barely able to get inside before he does, and now we're trapped inside of his lair and we have no way to get out. Bilbo is in charge of finding a way out of his lair, and the first thing we have to do is descend all the way into the bottom of the cavern and start raising the water level so that we can cross over this giant gap. This part is pretty neat because you just have to plug the hole and make a mad dash to the top of the gap. Once we get to the top, we're able to cross over and the dwarves lead us into the former ancient kingdom, the Forgotten City. But while this is happening, Smaug goes down into town and attacks it with fire. A lot of fire. Thorin tells us about the Arkenstone that's locked in the treasury, and we have to figure out how to unlock the door and get inside. I'm sort of going to skim over this part of the game because it's just a lot of solve a puzzle, then run here, then go back, solve a puzzle, run back. So I wanted to show this water moving puzzle, which wants you to fill up the edge of the area to let water flow. The water will flow as you turn the valves. It changes the direction the water flows, and you need to fill up the edge and the top of the square. Once we solve a bunch of puzzles, we're able to form a metal key to unlock a door into the treasury. I don't think I really like this level all that much because it was just a bunch of back and forth and nothing was really going on. But we finished the level and grabbed the Arkenstone. We end up keeping the Arkenstone as our portion of the treasure, and we give it to Elven King and Bard. The elves and humans try to trade the Arkenstone with the dwarves in exchange for their portion of gold that Smaug was guarding all that time. But the dwarves refuse and they head into an all-out war between the races. Gandalf shows up and tells them that a massive goblin and orc army is heading that way and they need to band together to win. Guess where we are now? We're at the beginning of the mission that we played in the dream that Bilbo had before at the very beginning. It's all connecting now. We take down some goblins and then activate this catapult thing and break down a big wall so that we can advance further. We run into Gandalf again and he tells us to meet up with Lyanna, which is the female elf we saved in the cave all that time back. So being a good listener, that's exactly what we do. We return a lever so that we can drop a ladder to advance to the next area of the mission. And then we meet a giant bear named Bjorn. He's like just a giant talking bear. I think he might be a shapeshifter, I have no idea. Bjorn is massive, and I'm pretty sure he'd be able to take down anyone on the battlefield at that given time. We have to stay with him and help him in any way we can. We cause an explosion that lowers a bridge so Bjorn can get over to the other side where we're hanging out. The next area, Bjorn gets in trouble. He's in like this magic bubble, and we have to get these explosive barrels to take out the goblins that are causing the bubbles to be there. This part is ridiculous because everything happens to line up perfectly when causing these barrels to end up in the right place. Look at this. The barrel rolls down a wooden bridge, knocks over a tower that causes a wagon wheel to come off and fly down, hit this goblin mage that is casting the spell. What? And this happens 4 times. It's perfect every single time. After doing this a couple times, Bjorn gets free from the bubble and takes down the Goblin King Bolog. I think that's how you say his name. We get another hand-drawn cutscene telling us about this. I wish we could have actually seen it. The Great Eagles arrive, and Bilbo gets hit in the head with a rock. That knocks him out. Or he saw no more, like the narrator says in the game. The war raged on for a bit longer, but when it was all over, Bilbo only took 2 small chests of gold and headed back home. Then the game ends and the credits roll. That's it for The Hobbit. I think I would recommend this game. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be going in. It's a pretty solid platformer, so check it out if you want to play an old school platformer game in the Lord of the Rings world. If you want to know what's next, stick around, but if not, thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe, like, and share this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Up. Random number generator is ready at 5:48, and on the count of 3, we're going to find out what our next game is. So, 3, 2, oh, god damn it. 3, 2, 1... 513. What is that? What is 513? All the way to the bottom. What is it? What is it? What is it? Ultimate Spider-Man. I don't know if I've ever played this Spider-Man game. But yeah, came out for the GameCube. It was a late game for that for the GameCube console, so hopefully it's pretty good. I'm kind of excited to play that too. So we got Ultimate Spider-Man next.